Ladies and gentlemen, fight fans all around the world, let's talk some boxing. To my video was comments on GGG and GGG's resume, in which Ward critiques GGG's defense and the fact that he did not work on it while he was winning fights with Abel Sanchez. On my discussion on GGG's overrated resume, Manny Floyd responds by saying Andre Ward's resume is full of bums except for Kovalev, and he laughs. And GGG has Canelo and Jacobs. I say GGG's resume is better overall than Ward's. That's the basic argument. I responded a number of times, but the most important response is, I asked him, Carl Froch, Mikkel Kessler, Chad Dawson, Arthur Abraham, Sekio Bika, Sullivan Barrera are all bums? Like, really, come on, man. And he goes on to say something that sounds very ignorant and shows me that I need to point out who these people are. He says, who the fuck are they? None of them are better than Canelo. He goes on to accuse me of being a Floyd and Ward nut hugger or whatever. You know, these fanboys, they think everybody's a fanboy like them. He says, now, Ward's resume is just trash. As GGG's resume. Oh my God, he equates Ward's resume to GGG's resume. At least GGG fought Canelo, who is going to be in the Hall of Fame. No one on Ward's resume, listen, is going to be in the Hall of Fame or should be in the Hall of Fame. That is a shock. So I'm going to educate this guy on Ward's resume. So this is Andre Ward here. I'm going to speak about the guys that he faced. He won his first championship against Mikkel Kessler in 2009. Who's Mikkel Kessler? That's one of the guys I mentioned, right? Mikkel Kessler is a long-reigning world champion. Multiple world champion at super middleweight. That's the weight class that Andre Ward fought at. He beat Manny Siaka, which you can see right here, for the WBA World Super Middleweight title. He would go on to unify that title against Marcus Baer. So now he was the WBC WBA Super Middleweight Champion. And he would go on to face the legendary Joe Calzaghe and lose in a unification bout which he wanted to add the WBO title to. But here's the amazing thing. After facing Joe Calzaghe, vacating all the titles, moving up to light heavyweight, he would regain the WBA Super Middleweight title. Immediately after his loss, this guy not only wins the Super Middleweight title back, but he knocks out the guy in the 12th round. He goes on to defend successfully before facing Andre Ward and lose to Andre Ward, losing the WBA Super Middleweight title. And the very next fight, he faces the legendary Carl Froch. And guess what? He gives him his first loss, regaining the WBC Super Middleweight title. That's the kind of guy that Mikkel Kessler was. He would go on to be stripped of that title, but he would go back, get himself in position to win the WBA World Super Middleweight title a third time. Or was it a fourth time? I can't remember. Against Brian McGee. He would unify with Carl Froch and lose to Carl Froch, the same guy he beat in a 12-rounder, which was a relatively close fight, a to-and-fro fight. This is Mikkel Kessler. Now, you argue, will Mikkel Kessler be in the Boxing Hall of Fame? Hell yes. Of course. He's a Boxing Hall of Famer. But let's just move on. Sekio Bika, rough and rugged kind of fighter. That's why I said this guy's not a bum. He was like the Sean Porters of the welterweight division. You know, he was like the Marcos Maidanas of the welterweight division, that kind of guy. Sekio Bika, I just want to show you guys so you can see. After being beaten by Andre Ward, he would go on to become, okay, you can see here, he lost to Andre Ward right here, and Jean-Paul Mendy. But after losing to those guys, he would go on to become the WBC World Super Middleweight Champion against Marco Antonio Paraban. You can see that right there. Alright? So he later on became a world champion as well. Then we have Arthur Abraham. I can't go into too much detail about him for time, but Arthur Abraham was a long-reigning, undefeated middleweight champion, moved up to super middleweight, and let me just show you the names that Arthur Abraham beat at super middleweight so you guys can get an idea. The last undisputed middleweight champion of the world, Jermaine Taylor, was beaten by Arthur Abraham. He stopped him in the 12th round. This is before Carl Froch stopped him. He would lose to Andre Durrell by disqualification because he hit Andre Durrell while he was down. And he would also lose to Carl Froch, but other than that, and Andre Ward, but other than that, he was able to gain a WBO super middleweight title, and he kept it for a little while. His nemesis was Robert Stieglitz. Kept it for a little while before he lost that title to Gilberto Ramirez. in 2016. I think he won the title in 2014, so he kept it. He won the title, yeah, in 2014. So he reigned as super middleweight, WBO super middleweight champion for 2 years. My point being, he was undefeated middleweight champion, and then he came up in an extra weight class and became long reigning super middleweight champion. Okay, and is he still boxing today? No, he's not still boxing. Okay, he lost to Chris Eubank, and he also lost to Chris Eubank. Okay, all right, let's move on. Is he going to be in the Boxing Hall of Fame? Probably not. But Carl Froch had 2 losses in his career. They were to Mikkel Kessler and to Andre Ward. He was able to avenge the loss to Mikkel Kessler. But this is the kind of guys that basically Carl Froch beat. He beat Jean Pascal to get the vacant WBC super middleweight title. He then beat Jermaine Taylor, like I said, the last undisputed middleweight champion of the world, knocking him out in the 12th round as well. He beat Andre Durrell by split decision. I argue Durrell won that fight, but nonetheless. He then lost to Mikkel Kessler, a fight that he avenged. He beat Arthur Abraham, Glenn Johnson. He lost to Andre Ward, beat Lucian Butte. Anybody who was anybody in the super middleweight division at that time, he beat. Okay, he cleaned out the super middleweight division except for Andre Ward. He avenged his loss to Mikkel Kessler, and then he faced the upcoming George Groves twice, just to make you guys know that wasn't a fluke. Okay? Those guys I just mentioned, we have 2 Boxing Hall of Famers already. Alright, just debunking the argument that this dude would be talking about. Okay? And Andre Ward faced these guys while they were world champions. Of course, we can skip all those other guys. We can talk about Chad Dawson, who was the #1 light heavyweight in the world. But then again, we also had Sergey Kovalev. Sergey Kovalev was the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. They were going for #2 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, sorry. And Andre Ward was the #3. When Andre Ward beat Sergey Kovalev, he was the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. I mean, how can you even... And you know Sergey Kovalev's resume. I mean, the legendary Bernard Hopkins is on there. We have Jean Pascal. We also have Andre Ward on there. I mean, so when you say that this guy... Okay, let me put it to you this way. When you say that these guys are not... None of them are like Canelo. Okay, nobody's like Canelo on that resume. But here's the most important thing. Gennady Golovkin lost to Canelo too. Just like how Sergey Kovalev lost to Andre Ward, who became the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Alright? And is a sure ballot Hall of Famer. Okay? So when you talk about Andre Ward, you need to know what you're talking about. Okay? I don't even want to compare Gennady Golovkin's resume, but let's go there. Gennady Golovkin. Alright? So when you say trash, don't Gennady Golovkin's resume doesn't have anything like this. He don't have long-reigning champions like that. Alright? Gennady Golovkin, who are the guys that he really faced? He didn't even win against a world champion to get this championship belt. That's the first thing. Alright? The only world champion he even faced was Daniel Geale. Daniel Geale was the unified IBF. Let me show you. Daniel Geale beats Felix Sturm. And I don't even know if he beats Felix Sturm. I have to actually go and watch the fight because Felix Sturm was robbed against Oscar De La Hoya as well. But Daniel Geale, okay, was able to beat Felix Sturm. That's his greatest win, right? He was the IBF middleweight champion. He beat Sebastian Sylvester to get that. And then he beat Felix Sturm to become the WBA IBF World's middleweight champion. He was stripped, faced Anthony Medine, beat him. Then he lost to Darren Parker, and therefore he lost his IBF title. And 2 fights later, he faced Gennady Golovkin the following year. Okay? He wasn't world champion when he faced Gennady Golovkin. And 2, this guy and one more guy Gennady Golovkin has on his resume, David Lemieux, who became IBF champion beating Hassan Mendam. That's it. Okay? These are not long-reigning champions. Kell Brook was a small guy, so we can't even talk about him. Daniel Jacobs was the IBF champion. He just became IBF champion. And Saul Canelo Alvarez moved up in weight to face Gennady Golovkin. He wasn't a champion. He was a champion of a lower weight class. So, I mean, you can't even compare Gennady Golovkin's resume to Andre Ward's. It's just ridiculous. That's why guys who don't know shit about boxing should just keep their trap shut. Don't say nothing because you're going to look stupid, Manny Floyd. You're going to look stupid on here. That's all I got to say for now. Guys, I'm on to the next one. Peace.